Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're all having a great and wonderful day. Well, what we have here is the Carmelo Anthony situation here where the Frisco has been released the video. Well, let me put in quotations here, Mark, because people get angry when I do this. Is that the video has been released, but only to a certain group of people. And this video shows that on how the actual defense for Karmelo Anthony is not holding water at all. It's actually a pretty big problem. And then we're gonna go over with a lawyer here that kind of explains on what's been going on or what the case may be of Karmelo's situation. So that being said, we have this here.
At the track meet that led to the death of a student back in April, but only under very strict conditions. So through open records, they will allow whoever requests it to view that video, but no recording whatsoever is allowed. On that note, we sent our I-Team producer, Kelsey Mittauer, to watch that video. She joins us now in studio to walk us through what you saw. We're going to go in order here in just a second, Kelsey.
So what you guys don't know is that this video is being released only to a certain group of people. I do not have the video. I cannot release it to you. I cannot give it to you because it's only being releasing to a certain group of people, and that's it. So as I said before, once they release the video, I will post it. Now, as Jeremy has said before, this will probably be the last Karmelo Anthony video that I will be dropping until further notice, which in other words means the Karmelo Anthony situation will not be going through onto this channel until I see an indictment or something along the case of what's been going on here. So, or if he gets somehow, way, he gets released or removed out of jail. Like, unless that happens, I probably won't be doing this anymore. Because, again, I'm just trying to do update news on what's been going on and how this situation is. It is not looking good for Karmelo Anthony whatsoever.
In general terms, what did the video depict? What did you see?
It shows everything from the moments leading up to the stabbing to the medical response to then the beginning of the police investigation.
Okay, and it lasted several minutes is what they showed you.
It did, about 30 minutes.
Okay, so let's start in the beginning now and talk a little bit about what you saw at the front end of that video, because you got to see the attack, the actual stabbing
right.
took place.
So I started watching about 9:53. The camera shows half of the field. So it's about from the 50-yard line on. And the tent where it happened was kind of right in front of the 50-yard line, but the camera is down here. Okay. It's positioned across the field. So everybody in the video, you can tell they are kids or adults, but no one's identifiable.
So a long shot is what
a long shot, yeah.
So a couple of minutes in, and you actually see the altercation take place.
Yes.
So what essentially she's saying here is, what if you guys don't know, for the fools that are hard to understand, to see what she means, is that essentially it's very, very grainy. The video is hard to see. Sarah Fields has said this before, to where it's very grainy. It's hard to identify. So like it doesn't really do anything. Whereas what she's about to explain is what's going to go on here. But again, it's very grainy. It's hard to see. You can't identify exactly who. But obviously, if you know the situation here and the case behind, you got to see who would be the aggressor, who is not the aggressor, et cetera, et cetera. So without further ado, no more interruptions.
Everything leading up to it, everyone's milling about. It seems very normal. And then right at 9:55, that's when there's this explosive movement or action between two people under the tent. And that's when the employees in the room told me that's when the stabbing happened at 9:55.
Right. And you were talking about people kind of start to scatter at that moment. Obviously, something went wrong. And so what happens next? Because now, a little bit later on, that's when the ambulance shows up.
Right. So when the ambulance arrives, it actually comes through near the end zone at the gate, and then it comes up to the 50-yard line directly in front of the tent. You can see Austin Metcalf is right here. But then when they pull up close to the tent, they realize that they can't get the stretcher to him because of the barrier of the bleachers. So at that point, then the paramedics have to get out, and then they have to walk all the way back to the end zone. This is actually, in the next slide. They have to go all the way back to the end zone and then come all the way back. That takes another couple of minutes. So at this point, they've arrived and they are actively working on Metcalf at that point.
And we want to reiterate, we're using some imagery here to sort of denote exactly what was happening here, these little icons that were using the ambulance, because again, the video was not able to be released. You're watching all of this happen, Kelsey, and you're watching the time sort of elapse. What are you thinking about when you see this, especially when you see sort of the issues in getting Metcalf out of there?
I mean, you know, I understand why it happened the way it happened. They were still working on him, actually. The thing that really struck me is they're working on him, and that's when you see the rain's coming down heavier, and then they actually pull out the blue tarp.
The blue tarp that we saw.
Right, and then I noticed the crime scene tape is already up. I was so focused on here, I didn't even see that, but they're building the crime scene actively around him as they're continuing to work on him in the bleachers.
So that was happening while he was still there?
Yes, he's in the bleachers.
And in closing here, because we know that several minutes had elapsed, and people are sort of scurrying in different areas, what do we know about the suspect in the stabbing, Karmelo Anthony, and his whereabouts?
So I asked the women in the room, the employees, I said, of everybody on this screen, is Karmelo Anthony in here? And they said, you know, we couldn't tell you, we don't know. And honestly, it was so hard. Once it happened, you know, there's people going this way, that way, yeah, this way, and this way. So sure, it was just hard to know what direction he headed.
All right, Kelsey.
Yeah, because as she said here, it's hard to see. This is pretty much it for the most part. It's done. And this is what we have an issue. So as you can see here, they were trying to go over here, but this was blocked off by a rail. And they had to go completely all the way over here, and then to here to even get to this area. Honestly, if it was me and I was a mad lad, I'd probably you know, hop over the fence, but I can understand why they probably didn't do that. So it took them at least 3 extra minutes to probably even get over there and render aid. And by that time, they're like, he's already gone. He's done. I understand like with Officer Tatum on what he has to say about this. So I'll let him kind of explain on that whole situation of the crime scene and how that works. Because again, it's better to get his perspective than me just say it, because he's been an actual officer. So without further ado, here's what he has to say on this front.
When it comes to the ambulance working on somebody, I would argue that a medical personnel jumped up into the stands and began CPR as they get the stretcher to come around and get Austin Metcalf. Also, the reason that they put crime scene tape up is because they probably knew that Austin Metcalf had already died. Like, this is one thing I think people have to understand, because there's legitimate protocol that you have to do. Although, do you know that there's an end result? Like, for instance, you don't stop doing CPR on somebody just because they die, if that makes sense, right? Until you can get them to a medical facility where they could possibly be reassessed and there could be life-saving measures. If a person is completely dead and they're ruled dead at the scene and there's absolutely nothing you can do to save them, then they will leave the body at the scene, tarp the body, and create crime scene tape. The medical staff will leave and the coroner will come and get the body later after they process the scene and recreate the scene and everything else. But in a situation like Austin Metcalf, him being a young man, just because he goes unconscious or his heart stopped beating doesn't mean that they're not going to continue to do CPR on him, and does not mean that they're not going to try to transport him to see if they can save his life at the hospital. Therefore, it would be reasonable that he had already died at the track. He probably went unconscious. His heart stopped beating because he got stabbed in the heart, and he was completely dead. He died in his brother's arms. He was laying there. But they're not going to just let him. They're going to try to do some form of CPR on him until they can assess the issue at a hospital. So the reason why they may have been putting up the crime scene tape and putting the tarp over, because they pretty much knew he was dead. And they want to prepare for a murder scene. And they had to go through the rigmarole of, you know, trying to save him and put him in the ambulance and pronouncing him dead at the hospital. So just so you guys know, because it does seem to be odd that they did all this and all that, and they put the tarp up and everything, but the kid is still kind of alive. It's like, no, I have been to cases and scenes like that before where we got to do our due diligence and try to do the best that we can, but we do know the person is gone.
So again, what we have here is just another reality of, you know, kind of having a bigger understanding of what's going on. Obviously, they deemed he was already gone, passed away. So they put a tarp over, etc. So that's part of the reasons why they did this. They didn't show that, but Officer Tatum to kind of explain, because he was a police officer and they kind of understand on how that procedure goes. You guys can even put down in the comments down below if I'm wrong or if Tatum is wrong in this sense of what's been going on here. But that's kind of the gist of it. And their lawyer had something to say about this. The defense lawyer for Karmelo Anthony, so we're going to show that.
Definitely consideration always is whether it's a sort of obvious what we're doing or the implicit one, because we all carry these implicit biases with us that perceive or impact how we perceive an event. Now, what's really it's going to come down to, and I disagree with the guy who said this is not a self-defense case yesterday, I think he said it. This is definitely a self-defense case because it always is one until you look at the facts of the case.
Yeah, so I don't think that lawyer knows is going to do very well. Granted, though, he has to be on the side of his base, his client. So that makes sense. But again, this is something else that we have to talk about, because this is what we're talking about with this lawyer here, pretty much explaining on how this goes, because he knows his stuff.
I asked the lawyer himself, are there circumstances where being grabbed,
and no, it's not Tim Pool,
in any scenario, like you can imagine one, where lethal force would be justifiable self-defense?
Absolutely. I mean, everyone's asking the wrong question or answering the wrong question. The question again is, did you have a reasonable perception that you were facing an imminent threat of unlawful deadly force harm? If the answer to that is yes, you can use deadly force in self-defense. And there's an infinite number of ways that can happen. If someone just grabs you, are they grabbing you and they have a knife in their other hand? Because that's going to be a bad day for you. Are they grabbing you and they're 200 pounds heavier than you? Bad day for you. That could well be a deadly force threat.
What if they grab you and there's 5 guys all around you?
Sure, then there's a disparity of numbers. Then it's the force of the collective group that's threatening you, not just one individual.
What if they don't touch you at all? Are there circumstances where deadly force is justified?
Yes, of course. If someone comes up to me and opens up their jacket and says, "Give me your wallet," and they show a gun, they haven't touched me. I don't have to suffer a scratch before I can defend myself. I can defend myself against the threat that's about to occur. It's an imminent threat that you're defending yourself against.
I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say.
So I'm not going to continue with Tim Pool's thing here with him saying, that Karmelo Anthony's going to get off. He may get off. He may not. I don't know. I hope he's wrong about that entirely. But as you can see here, there are multiple avenues for self-defense. And Karmelo Anthony did none of these things. And this is just something that people need to start realizing with this here, with self-defense and all these other places here. So we'll see how this goes. Again, last video, unless something major happens, like Karmelo Anthony gets deceased or somewhere, I probably won't be doing any more reports on this until further ado. So yeah. All right, guys, that's it for the video. Let's go share. As always, take care, my friends.